Hello, my name is Sheila and I would like to welcome you to my podcast All About You. I love to listen to podcasts and especially conversations with famous people. However, I think everyone has a story to tell. Maybe a place you have visited, a hobby you enjoy, or anything that you feel would be of interest. I want to have conversations with lots of different people and hear their stories. So if you have a story to tell, please contact me on my email allaboutyoupodcast@yahoo.com. Welcome to another conversation on the All About You podcast. We are used to students taking a gap year to travel, but taking a gap year as an adult maybe is not quite so usual. However, my guest today is Chris Herrmann, and he did just that. Chris is currently sitting in Perth, Australia, and we are recording with Skype, so fingers crossed we have a good connection. I met Chris when he came to Valencia, and he is one of the nicest people you will ever meet. Chris was living a comfortable life in Perth when his life changed dramatically. This change led him on a journey around the world, taking him outside of his comfort zone. He wrote a blog while he was on his journey and has also written a book called My Senior Gap Year about his experience. So Chris, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Well, good, thanks, Sheila, and it's lovely to be part of your podcast.
Well, Chris, I'm currently sitting here with a copy of your book, My Senior Gap Year, which you very kindly sent to me when you wrote the book, and I've read the book and I'm still in awe of what you have done and the things you accomplished and just basically deciding to go on that journey. So can you tell us how it all came about?
Well, you mentioned a gap year, and I must admit I never had any intention of taking a gap year. I mean, I always used to sort of jokingly scoff at these young people who always take off on a gap year. Used to sort of joke, well, they should be more responsible and go get a job like the rest of us. But I found myself in that situation where, I mean, if I take it back a step, we were living the family dream. Our children were now starting their own families, and we're there for each of the children and grandchildren as they came along, and we'd share birthdays together, and we'd love it when our grandchildren come right out the door and we give them a big sort of grandparent hug. But unfortunately, that all suddenly changed when my wife suddenly became ill, and with a week of that, her life suddenly passed away, and it was, and I guess one of the contributing factors when I look back on it was that it was in her final hours, and she kept saying, "I can't believe this is happening. I can't believe it's happening," and it was just such a surreal moment, just all our 40 years together, just leaving us before our eyes. And it was as time went by, after sort of I guess coping with that change, and where I suddenly found myself single, because at that stage our three children, their families, are in the process of moving up into the northern part of Australia. And I found myself where I was 40 years ago, single, no dependents. And I thought, well, maybe this gap year thing's not such a bad idea after all. So that was really, I guess, a bit of background that led me to it.
And Chris, one of the questions, when you made the decision to take on this gap year, how on earth did you go about planning when you were going to go, where you were going to go, how you were going to do it? I mean, I can't imagine putting a project like that together.
Well, it's sort of interesting. I was used to do a bit of dragon boat, and I remember being out in a boat and sitting alongside as we were paddling away with this other lady, and she's opposite to me. She was telling she's going away for, I don't know, a month or two, and everything was planned down right to the last day, and she was sort of detailing her itinerary, and I thought, wow, that's impressive, because my only planning was I just had 3 stops around the world, and that was it over 12 months, and But I did that intentionally because my life, if you like, for me personally, had been turned upside down, and in some ways, people say, did it change you? Were you trying to find yourself? It wasn't so much that. It was more about I wanted to take on this venture to see where life would take me. And so I didn't want to have anything structured because, usually, like all our lives, we're sort of bound by routines and structure. And so I wanted this to be as unstructured as I could make it. And that's why I just booked the 3 stops around the world. One in Spain, where I had the pleasure of meeting you, and one in Central America, and one in Southeast Asia, and all the rest was just totally unplanned. Just take each day as it came. If I liked the place, I stayed. If I didn't, I moved on. In fact, when I arrived in Spain, the first port of the adventure, I landed in Madrid, had nothing booked. I had no idea I wanted to go to Valencia, but I still hadn't decided. But not speaking a word of Spanish, I managed to find my way from the airport to the train station and found the train that led to Valencia. So when I was actually on the train to Valencia, only then was I booking accommodation, at least for the first few days, to then sort out what I was going to do there. Totally unstructured.
For me, that is absolutely incredible. I just cannot imagine landing in a foreign country and not actually know where I'm going to lay my head that night. So for me...
Well, I must admit there, after a few days, getting close to a week, things weren't exactly falling into place. I was speaking to my brother back in Australia, and he said exactly that. Things aren't working out for you. But I knew that it's one of those things when you have that level of it's almost one of those moments. I know, what have I done? And it was a bit of a feeling like that. But as I've experienced in the past, if you stick with it, then things will work out. And true that it did. I eventually found a place where I rented for 3 months right in the heart of Valencia, in the old ancient city there, and it was such a great buzz, and meeting people like yourself. And in fact, my social calendar, as time went on, was actually busier than what it was when I was back in Australia. I thought I was busy then.
Well, that's not bad for somebody who doesn't speak the language.
Well, I guess that was one of my strategies why I had Valencia in mind, because I knew there's a good expat population, and I knew it would have been too much to take on, given the relatively short period of time I had, to completely settle in a foreign-speaking country. So this was a bit of a segue into the local community.
There are so many places you've been to in your book, but if I can just ask you, if you had to take one snapshot of your time in Valencia, what would that one thing be?
Once again, it's the fact that I was living in this ancient ancient historical city. It was, so in other words, it was a cultural experience. But the second thing was, it was an opportunity to meet people and become engaged in the community. I know it's only a short period of time, for a few months. To me, that's the enriching part of travel. It's not just travel, because travel can become travel for travel's sake, and it become fairly tiring. But to actually go to a place and then become involved in the community, that's, to me, is a richness of travel.
So after Valencia, where did you go next?
The next port of call was in Central America. So I landed in Panama City, and I must admit, my intent there was to actually do similar to what I did in Spain, just rent a place for a few months. But it didn't quite work out. I wasn't able to really find a sort of a short-term rental. So I thought, well, I'll ditch the suitcase, which I did. And so from there on, I just travelled for the rest of the gap year just with a backpack, and backpack no bigger than carry-on luggage. And I got to say, it was such a liberating experience that basically all you got, you're not lugging suitcases around, and it's like I said, it was just such a liberating experience, just going from place to place. If I if I liked the place, I stayed. If I didn't, I moved on. And it was from there that I worked my way up through all the countries of Central America, Panama, Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Guatemala, etc.
I mean, how were you were documenting this on a blog, which obviously made life easier. You could take pictures and you could write a daily blog so that you had great memories of this. And at the beginning, I said you wrote a book. Was the book in your mind, or was it just, well, I'm going to do a blog because that's a great way to document the trip for myself?
Well, it was none of the above, really. I did the blog initially because it was a way that I could keep my children informed of where I was. And initially, I actually had it passworded, so just the children could basically just get access to it. But then I enjoyed writing the stories, and I always had I guess the objective of the story was to be a little bit informed about the place I was at, to once, and also to be a bit of a story to tell, a bit engaging, and a bit of a personal account as well. So yeah, I enjoyed it, and I sort of committed to doing that a blog once a week, and the book came about because someone said you should write a book on it. And so I thought, oh, well, why not? So it was basically none of it was planned. It just happened. In fact, the book, when I came back to Australia, I spent several months in putting the book together, and then soon after it was published, then a publisher in Taiwan picked it up, and it's now there's a version printed in Chinese.
Oh my goodness, that's amazing. That's amazing. So tell me some of the stories, some of the crazy things, or I'm sure there was what I know from reading the book myself, there was some very scary moments you had being left in a country with no money.
Yeah, well, that happened a couple of times. In one particular one, I was in the Galapagos Islands, and there's 3 main islands, and I'd been on one island for a few days, and so I got a ferry to the next island. With my last $100, I paid the accommodation in advance and booked a tour, and I had about $10 or $20 left, and so I said, "Where's the ATM?" And they said, "Oh, I'm sorry, there's no ATM on the island." Well, I sort of went in a bit of a panic mode then. It's the fact that everything's in cash, and I didn't even have enough money to get a ferry ticket off the island. So I went into emergency mode with my last few dollars and went down to the local shop and purchased a can of tuna and some pasta. I thought, well, at least I can live for a few meals on that. But anyway, then I had this great idea, and I thought, well, why don't I create my own ATM machine? Because I'd heard on one of the islands that on this island that there was in fact a restaurant that took a Visa card. So anyway, leaving my emergency rations behind, I set off for a more deserving meal, and I sat near the checkout counter. So and what happened then is each person came up to pay. I'd go up to them and say, "Excuse me, are you paying by cash?" And so I'd pay their bill by credit card, took their cash, and after a few withdrawals, I had enough money to live for the next few days and get a ferry ticket off the island.
I mean, that is just genius.
Yes, well, I guess it's one of those things. It's another one of those cases. You think, "Oh no, what have I done?" But I guess there's always a solution somewhere around the corner. Well, one of the things that stood out to me, and I guess just when you talk about meeting people, I mean, as I said before, that is the richness of travel. And I mentioned about meeting people because I met some wonderful people along the way in terms of got involved in some of the volunteer activities I mentioned, or the people I met in Valencia. But one of the things before I left, one of the things I really struggled with, I mean, here I was going off on this backpacking trip around the world, and I had no purpose. And I thought, well, how can I just do this without sort of having some sort of structure behind? I mean, it did actually bother me. But anyway, I couldn't come up with a purpose, but I left anyway. When I left Perth and set off, I went up north, travelled about 4,000 kilometres to visit my family along the way. I was in a remote outback town in outback Australia, mining centre called Tom Price, and it was there that when I was visiting my son, he came home one day and he said, "Dad, they're literally dumping all this bed linen." Because of the downturn in the mining company, they were dumping all this stuff. And so anyway, I made some inquiries and I thought if that's the case, there must be charities that at least use it, or this quality bed linen. Anyway, it came back to me that there was, I got lists of all these charities that could use it. So anyway, next day I went down, rode my bike down the local tip, the local dump. And sure enough, there was truckloads of all the mounds of all this bed linen. There was sheets and pillowcases and doonas just being dumped. And as I was there's more truckloads of this stuff coming in. So anyway, long story short, through some connections, I was able to basically get that redirected. In the end, this project continued, such that to this day there's probably about $1 million worth of bed linen that was redirected to a whole range of charities in Australia and around the world. Now, where I'm going to from the story to answer your question, later in my gap year when I was in Southeast Asia, I was in Laos, and I'd heard that one of the charities that received this was a charity in Thailand, in fact, the northern parts of Thailand, where those children were rescued from the cave. So I tracked down this charity, and I was then taken on a tour through these 3 or 5 hostels, because what happens is they provide accommodation for children that from the poorer regions in the mountains, up in the mountains, and they house them in these hostels where they get access to good education, etc. So I was taken on a tour through each of these hostels, where these hostels had received this linen that was otherwise being thrown away in Australia, just dumped. And there's one constant theme that came out after every hostel was that feeling of expression of gratitude. And I sat with these kids, alongside their beds, and some of these kids had never slept on sheets before, and it was just that overwhelming sort of feeling of gratitude, and just to see that the pleasure that it brought to these children, it was really quite an overwhelming and a great way just to, once again, it just provided that a fantastic opportunity, that sense of fulfillment, is what I accidentally discovered. It all started from a rumour in Australia, and then to be part of the gap year, just to see that personal impact that it had.
I mean, that's an incredible story of just one person linking 2 situations together, and the impact it had on the children, and then ultimately the impact it had on you. And yeah, it's just an amazing story, Chris. That's incredible.
I guess to me, it's the moral of the story is that sometimes, like I left without a purpose, but sometimes you just got to go out and do it, and then opportunities reveal themselves, and it's I guess being in that mindset to seize those opportunities. And so to me, it was one of those great life lessons.
I think that's an interesting point, because I think in this situation, the purpose found you. And I think, as you say, sometimes if we just let ourselves be open to opportunities, somehow those stars will align and those opportunities will come to you. So
exactly, because it brings up another point, like it's like it was had this, well, one of those things, you have these great ideas, let's do a gap year, that's great. It's all very well to talk about in hindsight, but I know at the time there was a lot of, I guess, as I often say, there was one person who was trying to stop me from doing this little adventure, and that one person was me, because I came up with all these, it's like the little voice inside your head the voice of fear who's trying to keep you in your comfort zone. Things like saying, "Oh, you're too old. You're going for 12 months, and what if you got sick? Had a heart attack? No, I don't have a clue where you are," and all those sort of things. And it's one of those things when we all make those decisions or trying to make a decision out of our comfort zone, how we are our worst enemy and how we go about stopping ourselves through fear to stop us from doing it. And by just, in the end, I remember when I was about to book this thing, book the airfare, and once again all these fears were kicking in, and as if I sort of turned to that voice inside my head and just said, "Well, just shut up, we're getting on with it, we're doing it," and click book into done. And I think sometimes, no matter whether it's travel or just doing some decision where your gut feeling is telling you should be doing it, I think it's one of those cases that just shut up, just get on with it, just do it.
It's taking that leap of faith, isn't it? And
That's right, yeah.
I think sometimes, I mean, we as humans, we cling to what we know, we want to stay with what's familiar, but sometimes it's taking that leap of faith. And we've all had experiences where we've actually gone forward and done something we're afraid of. When we've completed it, you feel you can just take on the world and you can do absolutely anything because you've pushed yourself out of your comfort zone and you've come out the other side, hopefully unscathed.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's I love the saying, if you see, what is it, 10 problems coming down the road towards you, you can be assured that 9 will fall in the ditch and you just be left with one to deal with. But it's quite true. I reckon you can apply that just about anything that your mind gets filled with, all these problems that you're faced with or fears. But it's the same going back to those fears. And it doesn't matter where you're at. Like, you may not be looking to do a gap year, but I mean, some people just traveling interstate, for example. It's all about stepping stones, just taking one step at a time, just stepping out that little bit of comfort zone and then using that as the next stepping stone to step out that next level. Because the fears are exactly the same, no matter when you're a kid taking on your first little, I don't know, whatever venture it might be. The fears are exactly the same. It's all about stepping on each one of those one by one. That's to me is my take on it.
And do you think, Chris, you've come back a different person after doing this gap year?
Yeah, well, a lot of people say, has it changed you? And I guess, I guess other people have to be the judge of that. But once again, to me, it was a couple of things. One is not sort of traveling the world with just a backpack. And so, number one, material things. I mean, it's how important is that to have a house full of all these clickety little knickknacks and little stuff that we all hang on to and collect dust. And I'm not criticising others for doing, but to me, those sort of things are no longer important. It's the life experiences which are more important.
So, Chris, have you got a country that you would say was your absolute favourite? It's probably difficult to pick one, but is there one that stands out in your mind?
I think once again I'd go back to Spain, because Spain is a good, a great standard of living. It's an economic place to live and visit, and the culture is great. Like, it's a different culture to our culture. So that's one country. But I apart from that, just about every other country, there was some unique qualities about it, which makes it just as special. And once again, I think I think we're all the same. If we looked at any holiday, vacation, or wherever it is we've had, I dare say that our high consideration of a great holiday would be because it would involve people somewhere as part of that.
Yeah, some of the characters you meet and the experiences you have through those characters.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Chris, was there any country where you felt unsafe, or you couldn't wait to leave from?
No, I can't say there was. I mean, people talk about Belize City being the highest murder rate, or if not one of the highest murder rate cities in the world. We arrived by bus, and I was pretty quick to sort of exit through there, but I got on a ferry and went out to the island one of the islands off Belize, Cayo Coc, I think it was. Anyway, it's just it was a great experience as part of Belize, but it was just this little island and just off the coast, and so Belize was nothing like the reputation that it had. I mean, there's other parts. And a lot of people said, don't go. When I was in Central America, in Panama, one of the expats there said, well, don't go further Nicaragua, it's too dangerous. And so I went up to Nicaragua, and I sort of noticed that people were coming back from places like Guatemala and Honduras, and I thought that can't be too bad. So I thought, well, I'll venture up there. But had I once again listened to that voice of caution, I would have missed out some fantastic experiences. Experiences I had in Guatemala, did some Spanish classes there, and met some lovely people there, and Honduras, just staying out one of the islands there, and yeah, just all great experience. And I think the thing is with safety, I have this saying that it's only dangerous until you get there. In other words, sitting on your couch at home, you hear about all these places, how dangerous they are. And that's not to dismiss that places in a country aren't dangerous. First thing I'd do when I was approaching a place, I'd say, well, if I booked into accommodation, I'd say, well, is it safe to go out, whatever? And it's the locals that give you that advice. Like there's one place I checked into. I was trying to think where it was. It was that was down in South America, in Peru, and I'd been traveling all day, and I got off the bus and I just felt like going for a walk, and they said, oh no, don't. There was a sort of quite a popular walk up to this top of this mountain, and the local or the manager in the accommodation, oh no, don't go there now, it's too hot as well, and I didn't think it was that hot. But anyway, I took the advice and didn't go up there. But next morning, when it was recommended to go up there, I went up there. And I could see why, because the whole path up this mountain was lined with police, and but there was almost hundreds of joggers and walkers going up there. So once again, it's a matter of just taking local advice and then working around that, enjoying the experiences, the positive experiences these places have. And if I could perhaps give another example, there was one of the other countries, just trying to think what it was. Anyway, it was recommended that don't go there. And that did sort of just basically, I kept it off my list of places to go to, but I was on a plane with a person from there, and they said, oh, you're coming to such and such. And it made the point that every country, and it's the same in our own cities, we all have, there's parts of a city we just don't go. Local knowledge says you don't go there, or after dark or late at night, you don't go there. But I think a lot of these other places, some of these regions are just larger, but that doesn't mean to say there's some great places that these countries have to offer. So once again, it's just really tapping into local knowledge and finding out where you can go and where you can't go. So that's a bit of a long answer to your question there, Sheila.
What about some of the food and drink you came across, Chris? Because when I travel, I'm always keen to know what is the local drink, not necessarily alcohol, but for example, here in Valencia, we have horchata, which we have in the summer, which is a very sweet milk made from tiger nuts. And we traditionally have that with long, sweet breadsticks called fartons. That's a very strange name. So the idea is you get your sweet breadstick, you dip it in the horchata milk, and then you eat it. It's absolutely delicious, in my opinion. But from a lot of people, it's a bit like Marmite, which is an English, it's very black, comes in a jar, very much like your Vegemite. And it's you either love it or you hate it, is Marmite. And with a lot of people, or chatter, you love it or you hate it. So did you come across any spectacular food or drink that you either loved or hated?
Well, probably the most spectacular meals I had is some of the ones I enjoyed through cooking classes. And I did a number of those. I did it for a couple of reasons. One is it's a social opportunity, because once again, traveling on my own, I'd always look for ways where there was some scope for to make a social connection. But of course, the other side of it, the core reason we're going there, is to experience cooking some of these meals. And I mean, you can't really go wrong with them because they have everything laid out, all the different ingredients, and you just follow the instructions to put it together, and enjoyed some great meals. I mean, none perhaps any specific ones. You know, people often say, "Did you ever get sick?" And for whatever reason, I guess perhaps I was being well looked after from above or whatever, but not once did I ever really get, sick from the point of view of being sort of, ill. And it's quite amazing sometimes when I thought about it, like you'd be served up this sort of bowl of stuff, like in some dodgy looking or dodgy sort of accommodation places happened to land at. And I remember this one place, it was this sort of bowl of all this sort of dark sort of fluidy matter with a few bits of stuff floating in there. And it's sort of, but I'd sort of say, come on, stomach, we can do it. Anyway, get through it, and always seem to survive it. Another place, staying at this monastery, I think it was in Myanmar, and enjoyed this really delicious sort of spicy sort of meal. Then I was looking down as upstairs and looking down towards the kitchen after, and just seeing the state of the kitchen. I thought, oh no, fancy just having eaten all that. But putting that aside, the meal was delicious.
When you returned from your gap year, what was it like trying to get back into a routine or get back into sort of the normal life back in Australia? How was that for you?
Yeah, I guess in some ways it wasn't quite as traumatic, because I just kept the travelling experience going in Australia. And because, as I mentioned before, when I got back, well, first of all, I had a catch-up organised, had a week with my family members and extended family members up in Queensland. So that was a great opportunity to catch up with everyone. And then I spent the next few months writing the book, and then after that sort of went around Australia promoting it, and with different sort of media opportunities. So I sort of kept on the move quite a bit doing that. So it wasn't really just exactly slotting back to a normal routine way of life. Because when I left, I gave up the apartment that I was renting at the time, sold the furniture, and then stored what was left. And so yeah, the travel component still somewhat continued.
So what are your plans for the future, Chris? Is there a gap year part 2 coming up?
Well, it's not strictly a gap year in the traditional sense of it, because of the whole COVID border situation. We're actually, with myself and partner, we're embarking on another type of gap year, which we've called our senior Aussie gap year. So we've got ourselves a 4-wheel drive, and we've started the journey, and then be resuming it soon. Just experiencing different parts of Australia, and be blogging about that experience. So yeah, it's one of those things that there's always a plan to spend more time traveling around Australia. I guess the whole COVID thing has basically forced that a bit earlier than anticipated. But yeah, some great experiences in Australia. Really looking forward to sharing.
Oh, well, Chris, it's been absolutely brilliant hearing your story. So I will put details of your website, myseniorgapyear.com. I will put links to the book on the website as well, so you've got everything there. Thank you so much for just giving us a short look at your journey and some of the stories. It's been absolutely fascinating, and I wish you good luck for you and your new venture traveling around Australia.
Yeah, thanks very much. Yeah, it's likewise been a real pleasure to share some of the moments and the stories with you and your podcast listeners. So thank you.
So, as it says on the front of your book, My Senior Gap Year, life is a journey, not a destination.
So true.
Oh, thanks, Chris. Take care now.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I hope you have enjoyed the conversation. Don't forget, if you have a story you would like to tell, please get in touch. My email address is allaboutyoupodcast@yahoo.com, and thank you for listening.